Welcome back to the Power Chat, sponsored by Blue Mark Energy. Well, in the first half of our chat with Kansas State basketball coach Bruce Weber, we covered his life and coaching career up until he arrived in Manhattan, Kansas. And in 2012, he was a sort of controversial hire to replace Frank Martin. His program won a Big 12 championship, went through a dipping process where it kind of bottomed out, and I talk about my column calling for his firing. And now he's got the Cats rolling, an Elite Eight, followed by another Big 12 championship, and he's getting ready to enter year 8 with a new bunch of players that will need a little bit of retooling to get the program back to where he wants it. Let's continue our Power Chat with Bruce Weber. We continue the Power Chat with Coach Bruce Weber joining us here in the WTC Gig Powered Studios. Coach, we got you up to your arrival at Kansas State. You leave Illinois. That just kind of got ugly at the end of Illinois, didn't it? Just with the fans. And,
yeah, it was more the athletic director. He's new AD, and he came in, he fired everybody. Football coach, women's basketball coach. Women's basketball coach came to me, and she was crying. She goes, I got fired. He didn't even tell me. I was even in trouble, and I said, I'm sorry, but I'm going to get fired, and my record's way better than yours, so you have to get fired. I felt horrible, to be honest, and it just, we got a new president, new AD. People have no idea. I never talked to the AD. I had like one meeting in 9 months. So Coach Zook kept calling me, and they started 6-1 or something. And he goes, man, has that guy called you or talked? And like, no, he hasn't.
Weird.
And they wanted something different, and it was what it was. And obviously then you get Chicago media, which you talked about, involved, and it was sad. And, but it's part of life, and good things happen, and happen for a reason. I really believe that. But it was probably harder, it's hard on me, but it was really hard on my family. And, you want to stay at a place, my goal and dream was to be like Coach Katie, stay at Purdue. Tom Izzo, stay at Michigan State, stay there. But in this medium, in this day of social media and that, it's tough. It's tough to stay at a place. And with the athletic directors and presidents changing so much, you don't get that probably loyalty that you used to have.
And you're on the job market for not a very long time. How did you end up connecting with John Curry?
I actually had probably 4 offers within a week or so. But John, when it opened up, Coach Katie called me right away, and I think he had called Ernie Barrett and some of the other, and said, you better hire Weber or whatever and all this stuff. And but it was interesting. John used some Dave Odom and some other, like a group that they, help with the process. And, they all tell me I was the one that everyone suggested right away. I met with John in Chicago. And, for like a whole afternoon, and I thought it went well, but he said it was going to go for a while. He was going to meet with people at the Final Four, and then other jobs started opening up, and I had some interviews, and, and then I think I guess he saw that maybe he needed to make a move if he was going to do it, and so they kind of flew Kirk Schultz into New Orleans, and I had a kind of emergency meeting there. I actually had to cancel another interview that day just to meet with them, and they offered it, and they said, we're flying to Manhattan tomorrow. I called my wife. I said, we're going to Manhattan, and she said, New York? And I was like, no. And I said, no, we're going to Manhattan, Kansas, and do you have anything purple to wear? And she just laughed, but they picked her. We picked her up and flew in and had the press conference, and that's kind of how it all worked, I guess. But it's nothing's easy, but it was very fortunate to be here, and we've created a lot of great friendships, and just feel good about having the chance to be part of K-State. And I know Coach Katie's very proud because he loves K-State.
He does.
It's his pride and joy, and he grew up in Larned, Kansas, and he loved the Wildcats, and he'll tell stories of coming to these games in some of these places and stuff. So he's always cheering. And then just his admiration for Coach Snyder, is just. And then when I got here and found out, all the story, you knew it from the outside a little bit. But as you got the book of A Miracle in Manhattan, it's amazing what Coach has done here.
Yeah, it really is. Were you conscious of the day you were hired of the people outside picketing about the hiring?
Somebody talked about it. Again,
that was one of the strangest things I've ever seen.
Well, didn't they want Doug Gottlieb or something?
That adds to the strangeness of it. Yes.
So, funny thing is, I had been on the radio with Doug at the Final Four. They has Radio Row, and I had been out with Doug like on the first day I got there before I went and met with John, and I didn't even know he was trying for the job his dad obviously had been around, and
he was on Jack Hartman's staff for a while.
Yeah, so he knew about it and things like that.
So you're in the coaching profession, and obviously Gene Katie's told you a lot about K-State, but were you really conscious of that lineage of coaches that had come through Manhattan?
No, I did not until I got here, and I was amazed. And I knew Tex was there because Coach talked about Tex, but and I knew a little bit about Coach Hartman, and but then when you walk in and you see, and Cotton Fitzsimmons, you throw him in. It was only 2 years, but you throw him in the mix and what he's about. And Coach Hartman and Jack Gardner, I mean, these are some of the best coaches in the history of the game. So it's pretty amazing. And, I had a chance to be around Tex because of Coach Katie. And, Coach played football here. Katie played football, ran track, and played baseball. And we brought him, and they honored him on the field a few years ago. They showed video of all three. I mean, it's just, you think about that in this day and age, it's incredible. But he really wanted to play basketball. But that was Bob Boozer and all the, and they were really good. And Coach, Tex always told me he wasn't good enough. But he kept stats every game. You see him on the videos. He's got his crew cut, and he had his tie on, and he was keeping stats. And so when he got hurt with the Steelers, came back, he went to Tex Winter and said, I need a job. I'm married. I have a child, and Tex said, I got a basketball job, but no football job. And so he helped him get the Beloit, Kansas high school job. They went to the state. He's still a legend up there. I've known his former players that came to camp at Purdue with their kids for years and years. And every time I go up there, there's somebody that, and then obviously Hutch. But because of that, I got around Tex a lot when he was with the Bulls. Got to go sit and watch the practices, sit and watch film with them, all that stuff. So it was pretty amazing to be around somebody like him.
As we talk about this, I'm just blown away by the circle of coaches that you've touched. This amazing mainstream of the history of college basketball. I mean, you've got to reflect on thinking, what great fortune, but also you took those opportunities, like walking with John Wooden.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing, from Al McGuire watching practices to being around John Wooden. And then obviously John Wooden was a Purdue grad, so we brought him back and honored him after he retired. So I got to be around him. Probably one of we had 700-800, the biggest place we could find in West Lafayette, and we honored him, and he spoke. And to me, I still, the poetry, all the things he does is just amazing. Now, there wasn't one pin, you couldn't hear anything. Everybody was locked in. It was like going to church. And so I got to be around him more than, with that. And what a gracious man. And, he signed autographs for hours, and just unbelievable. So it was it. And then Tex and, all these different, Rick Majerus, work camps with him and stuff like that. So very, very fortunate to be around some great basketball people.
Young sports writer Tim Fitzgerald is in Salina, Kansas, and I'm doing a feature on high school basketball coach Walt Schablum. And Walt was at Wyandotte, and Wyandotte High School was regarded to be the UCLA of high school basketball. And he was touring the country with Wooden doing camps, back in the day.
Lucius Allen.
Yeah. And
he's to UCLA.
Yep. He goes, I said, who can I talk to? And he goes, well, here's John Wooden's home phone number.
Yes.
So young sports writer gets to call John Wooden at home. And it was really the only time I've been nervous doing an interview.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's all
But
like,
he answered, right?
Absolutely, he answered. And he was gracious as all could be. It was
a
amazing.
high school coach in Wisconsin, Tom Desautels, who's in the Hall of Fame, and he got it, my brothers and all of us kind of started. He went and worked his camp for I don't know how many years and went in his house all the time. Tom just sent me pictures of him sitting in John Wooden's house with his wife and Nell, and you think about that. That's so rare now.
That's really cool.
But but obviously it's showing you how college basketball's changed and the media attention and all the other stuff.
When coaches take over jobs, more often than not, it's what you encountered at Southern Illinois. It's like there's a reason why the job's open. This job came open from a little bit different circumstances, but the first time you walk in that locker room and you start meeting with the players, you're like, I got something to work with here.
Yeah.
You had to feel pretty good about what you picked up on.
Same thing with Illinois, and I think that was, if you talk to John Curry, one of the reasons I had dealt with transitions at
right.
Even at Purdue, watching Coach Katie go against Coach Knight. Everyone told Coach Katie. I heard Al McGuire say, "Don't take Purdue." I heard Dick Vitale tell Coach Katie, "Don't take Purdue. You're never going to win. You're never going to outlast him." So going to Illinois and replacing Bill Self, going to Southern Illinois, Rich Herron, who was a local legend,
right.
high school, all this, and then coming here where Frank Martin was really loved and did a great job. So I think John felt like he said, "Are you up to it again?" But he felt like I had been through it before and knew how to deal with it. And and my first thing was, one, we did have players, but I wanted to keep them. Mm-hmm. And that when I got the job at Illinois, I flew to Dallas to see Darren Williams' mom. I did not want him to go back to Dallas. And I went to Rodney Magruder. I had a meeting. I told John I want to have a one-on-one with Rodney before I meet with the team because I needed him to stay. I had actually. And I've told the story, Chester Fraser was playing in Germany, and he's from Baltimore, D.C. area. Mm-hmm. I called Chester, and I said, can you get a hold of Rodney's people and see what's going on before I take this job? So all of a sudden, Squirrel and Squiggy from Baltimore got a hold of whoever else that knew Rodney, and they, so Rodney, I think when I met with him, felt good because I had reached out. And then that 2 or 3 days later, I went to meet with Rodney's parents in D.C. and just, I think, and they even say it, I've heard them in interviews that, that was a key. And then obviously the rest of the guys, Angel was a key. We ended up losing him a year later, but, to keep him and help win a championship was really good. And but we had a good group, and there was, some of those guys were maybe going to leave at the end. There was some stuff, but we ended up keeping everybody, and it worked out.
Yeah, it did. I tell people, I don't, this sounds slight towards Frank, but I don't think Frank wins a conference championship with that group. It was something about what he left them with and what you added in, and that happens in coaching, and it just was incredible.
Different personalities and different ways of approach and things like that. And Will was leaving for sure. He had already, because I had to call his dad, and it ended up his dad knew Rick Majerus through this and somebody else who knew me, and they said, well, Weber's good, it's okay. And Shane was leaving, and and Nina was thinking about it, so it just all kind of blended out and worked out, and it was a good, a great group, and obviously, for them, and we struggled early. I mean, it took us. It wasn't beautiful, but at the end, it was pretty. It was a good group, and they played well together and bought in. And it's still the LaSalle game, still one of my toughest losses.
What went wrong in that game?
I really think for the way we won the title, and then we went to the Big 12 and did well, I don't think the guys were ready, and I hate to say that, for LaSalle like they needed to be. And they played small ball before, and you don't have much time to prepare because they play Tuesday night, and then you got to play Thursday.
And they got a game under their belt.
Yeah, and they came out and hit every shot.
Yep.
And then we came back, and man, they were just make one or two plays. But otherwise, we're definitely, I think we're in the Sweet 16. And, who knows what could have happened. But that's the fun of March Madness, and you just can't always predict. And then a few years later, we got a group without Dean Wade, and we're going to the Elite Eight. So, you just can't predict it.
Losing Angel stung. I mean, that really kind of disrupted the rhythm of where you were going, didn't it?
Yeah, when you lose your starting point guard who was all league, and when he did it too, to me, and even his people, I've gone down, guys that he'd been around them, and that high school coaches, things like that. When I've gone to Florida and met, they say, Coach, Angel's best stats of his career were with you.
Exactly.
But he wanted more shots, and he would have got more shots. Rodney was gone, but I really think deep down it was his family, and he had his girlfriend, his mom, his sister, the brothers. They all ended up in Miami area, and I just wish it would have happened a little earlier, and maybe we could have. I still remember getting a call from him, and it was, he was always late coming back from break. Coming from Puerto Rico, and I thought he's calling again, and it was May, and I was on a recruiting trail, and I just said, hey man, think about it for a couple days before you do it. And then I flew back and met with John Curry, it's transferring. He's not the first. There were about 1,000 last year.
Yeah, there really are a lot. College basketball's chaos with all the transfers. You won't say it, but I think there was more at play with Angel than just family.
Well, it was.
It's a business.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But good. I hope it worked out for him. I think he would have been better staying. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think he would have been better staying in rhythm with the program he knew.
So, and I still he texts me off and on, and the coach cheering for you, and obviously Shane, him, J.O., all those guys are Rodney. They're all real close still to this day, and so they appreciate that, what those guys have done and where they've been, and so it's all connected, and it
teammates
happens.
are teammates. You always are teammates.
Yeah, they're brothers. They really are, and they go through the good and the bad, and that helps bring them together.
So you got to kind of retool after a couple years, and then comes the freshman class that ends up kind of coming apart. And I don't want to talk about it a lot because it's Marcus's business, but how difficult was that Marcus Foster season when he really is kind of coming off the rails?
Yeah, it was tough. It was probably one of the most difficult things I've been through as a coach, because you didn't get to coach. You had to deal with so many issues off the court, and he and again, Marcus was back last summer, played with our guys.
Right.
I won't say some of the things, but it was really one. It made me feel good, and after we beat them, and Creighton, Greg McDermott called me, and I know Greg or texted me, and he just said, Coach, what you did for Marcus when you let him go probably saved his life, and so that it really made me, because it was hard, because I didn't want to lose him. And
well, there's a lot of things I know, and we don't need to talk about. We don't. But at some point, it wasn't about basketball.
Yeah,
it was about saving a young man who was really in a bad spot.
And I, and again, you make decisions, it was a hard decision, and between John Kearney and I, we tried to keep him, and there's no doubt, but it just didn't work out, and he wasn't listening, and so, but I'm happy he went to Creighton, had a great career. We've been able to survive, but he was, as you know, he was pretty good. His freshman year was.
And then it was surprising. I mean, you knew he'd be good, but man, he came in and you're like, oh, wow.
Coach Lowry and I, our first recruiting AAU event was, we went and saw Marcus and Jeff Carroll, and there were a bunch of guys. We went down and we were like, man, these guys are really good, and ended up getting recruited. And then we ended up Alvin Brooks. We ended up watching Wes, and Wes's story was unbelievable from 5'11", to 6'5", and then keep growing after that. So, but we were fortunate and to get them. It was Creighton and us. We were the only two who recruited Marcus, and Jeff Carroll ended up being a really good player. We ended up taking Wes. Jeff Carroll, actually, I think we might have had him, but we ended up taking Wes, so we couldn't take both. So that group was pretty good.
Really were. Wes, when you were recruiting him, would you ever thought this guy's going to be in the NBA?
Not when I recruited him, but as it went on, he just got better and better. And when he finally focused on basketball, and taking care of himself in the weight room and all that stuff, when Marcus left, they were tight. Really close. And I just said, Wes, this is your chance. I want you in the NBA, and let's see if Marcus can make it. But I'm just worried about you, and it ended up being a good story.
In some ways, it's weird how life works out. I don't think Wes gets to where Wes is if Marcus stays.
Probably not.
Not. He was just in his shadow, and the shadow left, and he stepped into the light.
He was able to evolve. And I think Wes realized, watching Marcus go through it, he realized, hey, I better focus on basketball. And it clicks for everybody that, now. And the crazy other thing, he hurts his foot, and he can't practice. So, we totally reconstructed his shot. I just said, Wes, you got to do something. Because all he could do was walk through and shoot. Mm-hmm. And I said, so you're here with us for 2 hours every day. So we just took him in the other gym every day. It wasn't easy to reconstruct it. We put a patch over his eye because he was left eye dominant. He shot over here. We put a thumb thing because he had his thumb. We had a painted ball. We did all this stuff. And to his credit, he bought in. And he got better and better. And
so he's right-handed but left-eye dominant.
Yes.
How the hell do you even shoot a basketball?
Watch it.
That makes sense now. Yeah. And it gets that side spin going.
So we put a patch. I have never done it with a kid, but you go to the store when you get your eye hurt, Walgreens, and we put a patch on, and so he had to look out of his right eye. So it moved the ball over.
That's crazy. And it progresses. It kind of bottoms out, and you start the rebuild with the big group that we all know and love now. But some guy in the media, me, at the end of year 5 said, enough, let's move on. How bad was that time? And first of all, I'd like to say, well, hell yeah, I was wrong. But that was just, you were 6-10 going to TCU, I think. And then boom, you rattle off 3 wins, beat Baylor in the Big 12 tournament, and you get into the NCAA tournament. It just kind of changed.
Yeah, and they were young and growing, and then we got in the tournament, beat Wake Forest, and we knew they would be a good group, but we had to throw them to the wolves right away. They had to start, Barry at the end of the year. When Cam got hurt, I actually thought if Cam doesn't get hurt, we're in the NCAA tournament. I really believe that. I think we had a great chance. And he gets hurt. Now you just can't. Now you're trying to, and we beat Oklahoma. That was probably it then. We got the most out of it. They're number one, and we kind of got as much out of them. We just didn't have much left that year. But at the end, Barry was so tired. I always joke with Dean, he fouled on purpose because he didn't want to be in the game. He was so tired.
That makes sense because he had some silly fouls.
Oh gosh, it would be and. So it took a toll, but they grew and learned, and I guess to give credit John Curry, he talked a lot about, I watch all these other people, they keep changing coaches, and the program goes the other way instead of, and he said let's try to get some stability, and that group did, and
John Curry leaves in the midst of that 5th season, or towards the end. And what you went through at Illinois, that had to be a little unsettling.
Yeah, you don't want to lose your AD.
No.
And
new ADs want their guys.
Well, they want their guys, and they, so it. But we had done well enough, so when Gene came, I was a little more comfortable. But even at Illinois, I mean, you still go back. It's the best 9-year run in the history, and they hadn't won an outright Big Ten championship in 50 years, and we won back to back, and finished second twice, and national championship they had never been to, and so it is what it is. But there's, in this day and age, the athletic director and the president are so important, and you better have a contract where they can't fire you because most of the time they want change.
Mm-hmm. As you've coached so many great players, and in the big scope of things, the Dean Wades, Barry Browns, and Cam Stokes may not be in your top whatever, but how special are they to you? Because they were the backbone of rebuilding.
Yeah, there's this, as individuals, young men, great people, to watch their progress. I will, J.O., Shane, when Dean got to campus first day, they said he's a pro. I mean, we all knew it, but would we get it out of him?
Yeah.
And even now I text Dean, please be assertive, please be aggressive, please be an NBA player, you belong. And he gets mad at me, but I just...
He needs to hear it, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's just... And I hope he's a great story at the end and stays healthy. But that group was special. There's no doubt. And Barry, leadership-wise, is just amazing. His determination. I still think he could be like Rodney and end up in the league someday.
I agree.
And
defy the height.
Defy all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, he just works so hard. That Elite Eight team, it really can't be explained what happened. You get the upset with Virginia going. It kind of opens up the door. You still got to go through it. And okay, Sweet 16, that's great. Here's Kentucky, and playing mostly without Dean in that game. Mm-hmm. I remember looking up, and your tallest player on the court might have been X, and their shortest player was taller than him. I'm like, this is just comical looking at this point. How, as you look back over your career, how remarkable was that win over Kentucky?
Yeah, it was special. Obviously, Ernie Barrett. Well,
yeah, he loved
every
it.
time I see him, he hugs me. But no, it was unique. It was special to grind it out, and then for Kansas State get their first win over Kentucky in history, that even made it more special. And it's just sad now you couldn't recover and get Loyola. But Loyola was, again, we talked about K-State, Kansas, Purdue. That's the March Madness. And, and you got to give Loyola, their kid goes 6 for 7, and he's been shooting 20%.
I'd say it reminded me a little of LaSalle. They kind of went small on you, hit shots, and they just kind of had whatever it takes to win.
And I still, and again, I'm not making excuses, but we got back to the hotel. It was 2 a.m. after Kentucky.
Yep.
And I said you can meet with their families. The fans are all sitting there, but we hadn't even eaten dinner yet. So now it's 3:34 in the morning, and then the whole next day. It's tough, and I've said stuff to the NCAA. It really puts you in a bind. The other team's probably been in their hotel for 6-7 hours before you get there. Yeah,
same thing happened with the other Elite Eight recently.
Yes.
Late game, to the early game, coming out then 2 days later. I don't want to say you're restarting, but that group was so important to what happened at K-State. But you've got good pieces in place. This is going to be a very interesting season. You're back to kind of the basics here with some of the stuff. Teaching this defense can't be easy with a bunch of freshmen.
Yeah, it's new, it's interesting, and the good thing compared to Dean and Barry and Cam, we have 3 guys that have really 5 that have been through it, 3 that have really played, experience, but now can they become the guys?
Yeah, step up.
And be, instead of the role guys, they're the guys. That'll be a key. And then their success, I think will help the freshmen. And then they don't have to have the pressure on them, and they can build and go, come along slowly. So it'll be interesting. We're new, we're interesting. It's a good group. I think they have a good culture. They played their butts off. Now can we figure out roles and to me, who's going to make the plays when it counts? Because that's what college basketball, and especially in the Big 12 where the plus-minus in games is 4 or 5 points, who's going to make the plays when it counts and execute and step up? So that's what we'll have to wait and see.
Coming off a Big 12 title, dude, you're picked 9th. How the hell does that happen?
With 3 guys that started or played a lot of minutes, I'm not sure. But I think it shows you the depth of the league.
It does,
which is unbelievable. I really think everybody has questions on every team. You could look at these guys or whatever and say, how. But I know Cartier and Xavier and Mac are good enough. Now can they do it? It's like Dean in the NBA. I know he's good enough, but is he going to go do it? And get, so they're, Dean needs the opportunity. These guys are going to have the opportunity. Now can they step up?
Well, My conspiracy theory is there's too many Texas voters on those polls. They got to pick their teams to keep their people happy. Or
Yeah.
they got.
Well, I think Baylor's really good. Obviously, Kansas has a chance. I think West Virginia, it'll be interesting. Their guards, they do have big guys. And then after that, I think it's Oklahoma State could surprise people because I know they were 10th, but they got everyone back and experience. Chris Beard talks about it all the time. Stay old. If you can stay old and experience, it sure helps.
That's why the one and done thing doesn't work.
No,
I don't think it works.
That's right. You're right.
They're pretty good basketball players, but
yeah.
Okay, so we end all of our Power Chats with an overtime here. It's something we've done on our podcast for years. But I asked one of our users on the site to ask you 5 questions, quick questions. Exhausted Nihilist is the username. I love that name. What was your first car? The first car Bruce Weber owned?
A Mercury Monterey, no power steering, looked like a tank. With the paint job of Ernie Sherrod. What was that paint thing where they sprayed it on for $49?
Lord. That's a sweet ride, Coach. Do you have a favorite superhero? Are you a superhero guy?
Oh, not really, but obviously growing up, Superman was the one we watched.
It's old school. You got it. You're a Milwaukee guy. Favorite beer?
Well, I grew up on Miller Lite. That was that you got to understand. When people, I had beer when I was a little kid. That was just part of our culture. But you had Miller Lite. But now my son-in-laws, my kids, my daughters are getting me expanding. Boulevard I really like.
Yeah, really good.
I did get my buddies from Wisconsin came down and brought Spotted Cow.
Spotted Cow,
Glarus, it's pretty good.
My wife would leave me for Spotted Cow beer. She loves it. Being a Wisconsin guy, do you have a favorite cheese?
Well, I love the cheese curds. If you get fresh cheese curds that squeak when you bite them, there's
squeak
nothing.
when you bite them.
Oh yes, and they just came right from the factory, and they're the best.
I hope our friends at Alma Cheese have heard that. They can get you some of those. Who is the most famous person from Milwaukee not named Bruce Weber?
Wow. I don't know. There's a lot of athletes that have come through that, but they weren't from Milwaukee, so.
Want to be one of the old beer guys? Pabst Mansion?
I guess.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. And, there's, who's from Milwaukee? The announcer for the Brewers that's done all the Miller Lite commercials. That is, oh my goodness. Bob Uecker.
Thank you, Tom.
Bob Uecker is a Milwaukee native.
There you go.
Went to high school in Milwaukee. He'll tell you how bad a baseball player he was and played for the Braves. And to growing up listening to those games and his stories, it could get you through long drives in the car. It was great.
That's the best baseball announcers, the guys that have baseball but have fun with it. So, Coach, I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Best of luck this season. It's going to be a very interesting and I think a fun ride.
It is interesting. I think we have a chance. We might go through some growing pains.
You will. Yeah.
And, but sometimes that happens and teams come together.
I'd like you to know that I took the bullet for the staff and I am going to cover you in Las Vegas. I sacrificed, as far as I can tell, I'll be the only media member there, but I will be there because if you schedule Las Vegas, by golly, I'll be there.
Well, to me, it's an interesting game. I thought we needed a road game, and I didn't want to put it after Marquette and between Mississippi State, and so because I want a road game. One, it's good for your RPI or whatever they call it, net rating. Now you got to go on the road, and so I don't know if we put it too early, but we're going to learn about our guys.
Very good. Well, that does it for our debut of season 1.2 of the Power Chat. We'll be back next week with another personality from K-State Sports.